Hello everyone, this is Guideauxpelagos with the Guideauxpelagos. Fuck it. Hi everyone, this is Guideauxpelagos with the one of the last reviews of the ETA driven Pelagos Generation 1. I've had it for about 1,000 days, so I thought it would be a nice progress video to say how the watch has been keeping up after 1,000 days. It's about 2.5 years. I might be a week off, I don't care. I've had other watches in the meantime which I wore for a week or two, but almost every day the Pelagos will go back on my wrist for an hour or 2 hours, or it hardly ever stopped running. So without further ado, wristwatch check, Zenith 410, but go back to the Pelagos. This is the original box. I'm not afraid to say I originally paid 2,500 euros for the watch, including everything. That was before Tudor was already being sold in the US again, so that means it's about 2.5 years ago. There you got the box. And if you open the box, you will see the watch. Now, as everybody might have known, the watch comes with an extra diver's strap and a diver's extension strap. Great thing about that is you get 2 extra Tudor buckles. So when you take the watch out, seen the box, there we go. Now let me take off the Zenith. As you can see, this will always fit. Now why? Because I'm using it on the spring setting on the bracelet. Now a great thing about the Pelagos is that it has this bracelet that can adjust by itself. There's just a spring on the inside. So what do I want to talk about when I talk about Pelagos? Well, I wrote a few things down because it's like 1,000 days with the Pelagos, and I don't really know all the things I've said in my playlist and previous videos about the Pelagos, because you might have seen that there's about 3 hours or 2.5 hours of video about the watch. So that's the reason why I stopped. But after 1,000 days, I think I can give you some extra information. I wrote some things down, like I said, because I don't want to cut and edit everything out in the end. It just looks so sloppy. So what do we actually have here for a watch? Well, to be short, it's a titanium watch with a stainless steel clasp and a stainless steel case back. Thinking that titanium scratches easily, the stainless steel on the watch scratches much easier. It's not a problem. You can get everything polished out again. I'm not really sure if I want to have this watch polished. And it might go in for a service, because after 1,000 days of more or less daily wear, I found out it's 8 to 12 seconds off. I think it's slow, but could be fast as well. I'm not really sure again. It was, when I got it, it was about 8 seconds off. And I don't know why, but it was a time that it run like chronometer specs for about 2 or 3 months, and now it's back to 8 seconds. So I don't know what happened there. It's not a problem. Like I said, it's not a chronometer. It doesn't say on the dial. It's an ETA with a top grade ETA, and in that sense it should be able to run according to COSC requirements. So the next time this goes in for a service, and it might be a little bit earlier than I normally would have, just, you know, I've been when I bought this watch, I wasn't intent to start a whole collection. So the idea was, buy this watch, wear this watch, and don't think about any other watch for the rest of your life. And that's the way I treated watch the first 6 months I got it. It's not that I neglected it, but I just took it everywhere. Took it into the pool, took it, you know, I didn't mind, because this was the watch that would stay with me to the end. Well, I still think that's true. But now I got the other watches, I respect there is a luxury element in the Pelagos, and that's what I respect now. And although I like the unabashed tool watch look of the first generation Pelagos, it is hard for me to keep it as my ultimate beater. So I keep it as my daily wearer, but when I want to have a beater on my wrist, I take out the Mudmaster by Casio, for example. I mean, it's just a bit of a shame if you go paintballing and you put this watch on your wrist and it gets a direct hit of a paint ball, and you know it's gonna be fucked. So it might work, but the paint will be everywhere. Same if I go do a Mudmaster race, which we have a lot of in Holland, which means you go into a farmer's field and you run across the farmer's fields, and every little stream you pass you have to get through, and those are just mud. Those are mud streams. There's hardly any water in it. So if you do that like a parkour for about an hour or so, that's what they call the Mud Masters. So interesting. I wouldn't take it there. I would take the Mud Master there and keep this at home. I would take this swimming in the sea, no problem, but I would rinse it afterwards and stuff. I'm taking much better care of my Pelagos now than I did when I got it. I think that also has to do with the fact that, of course, now everybody knows there's a new generation Pelagos, right? You got the Pelagos Generation 2. What do I think of the second generation Pelagos? Like I said, I wrote a few things down not to repeat myself. I think Tudor, or like other people say Rolex, has done a marvelous job with the Pelagos. Why? Because they put out competition, direct competition to the Submariner and the Sea Dweller, but it comes from the same stable, right? So, or more or less. So they really putting pressure on the opposition, and I hear a lot of people talking about Omega having a difficult time, Breitling but these are all the watches that are in the same branches as Tudor is. So yeah, that's interesting to see how Tudor will take over a piece of the market, and maybe even more interesting to see, because we know Tudor is popular at the moment, so they're going to take a little bit of the market of Omega, they're going to take a little bit of the market of Tag Heuer, they're going to take a little bit of the market of Breitling, but are they also going to take a little bit of the market of Rolex? Now that might be interesting, because if people decide to buy a Pelagos because it's more hipper a watch maybe in a few years than a Submariner would be, because all the, how am I going to say this nicely? Well, you know what I mean. Apart from my friends here on YouTube, there's a lot of people wearing Rolex or Submariners who don't have any clue about watches. They wanted to have one watch, they wanted to have resale value. Resale value. And that's the safe spot to go to. It's like buying a Volvo when you want a car. And buy the best Volvo you can get, or whatever. I'm not comparing brands, but the way of thinking. So you can't go wrong, and you'll always be safe, and you will always be serviceable. The only thing with a Volvo is it doesn't have any resale value. It's all about safety, isn't it? Anyway, so what do I think about the two watches compared? Well, I did watch the second generation Pelagos in the shop. I didn't film it. If you want to have a look online, there's loads of pictures and videos about the second generation. So unfortunately I can't keep them next to each other, but I don't have any deals with watch brands and watch stores and whatever, so I'm not going to buy a watch to show it to you. Imagine. And I want to bring an unbiased review, because it's already very biased, because it's my watch. So if I get somebody else's influence and things again with it, why would you watch my review anyway? So going on, what I think that Tudor did with the first and second generation Pelagos is, when they made their in-house movement, they knew that they had to do something to the watch so that the first generation wouldn't get out of fashion. Because I understand the people saying, well, would you buy a first generation or a second generation Pelagos? And they go like, oh, why would I buy first generation? The second generation is only a couple of $100 more, and you get a 70-hour power reserve, you get the 5-liner, you get the in-house movement, because, you know, that's something you really see from the outside. No. So they all want to have that. And it's a chronometer. So that's... The second generation is for people who like the kudos. It's not wrong, and you might completely disagree with me, but I think the second generation Pelagos is for people that are more Rolex minded. You know, it says Pelagos on the dial. Chronometer officially certified, rotor self-winding, 1640-500. You know, it makes the Pelagos a more luxurious watch. 70-hour power reserve, in-house movement. You know, those things are very interesting for a brand with a very prestigious watch. Now, the reason why I bought the Pelagos was that it was a very good, unabashed tool watch. I mean, it's titanium and everything. And it has the ETA in it. Now, it actually was more or less the reason I bought it, because there were a lot of Rolex firsts on the Pelagos. For example, the titanium, the clasp. So, yeah, there's more, but just to give you those two. So it was Tudor's Submariner or Sea Dweller, because, you know, and as well, the detailing on the Pelagos. Well, that's first and second generation. Let's talk about that later. So the second generation Pelagos, what they did is for the second generation, to keep the first generation still interesting, they couldn't put out the same dial, the same watch, because then you have a watch that looks from the outside exactly the same, but has a different movement in the inside and will cost you $300 more. I think that would have been a gamble for Tudor to put two of the same watches out, one with the ETA and one with an in-house movement. You don't really can predict how the market is going to pick that up, and I would say that the ETA version would be fucked if the newer version that has the in-house movement would have had the ETA in it. Would have exactly the same look as the first generation. So if I can see from the outside if it's the first or second generation, probably everybody would go for the in-house movement, unless you're smart, you don't give a fuck about the in-house, because in-house movements only differ above 5 to 10k. Then it really gets interesting to watch movements. In my opinion, underneath about 10k or 8k, it's not really interesting to have an in-house movement, because it's all based more or less on the same thing. It's often not higher quality. It's like saying, I love what's a good car brand, you know. It's like, I love Suzuki, but it has to have a Suzuki engine. If I put a 4-liter BMW motor in my Suzuki engine, they would discard it as, no. You gotta have a 1.3-liter Suzuki engine, because that's the in-house engine. In-house, resale, you've seen I'm not the biggest fan of that. Same for resale, you know. You buy a watch that you want to wear for the rest of your life. Why would you pay, for example, you know, you buy 2,500 Pelagos. You can buy a $5,000 Submariner. And the reason why you buy that $5,000 Submariner, if you're a kudos guy, forget what I'm saying. Then you buy the Submariner, forget about it. But if you make it as an investment, how much money are you going to make on that Submariner? What, 3,000 euros in 5-6 years? If you're lucky, you really have a good price. If you gain the value of an Omega Speedmaster on your Submariner over the time of 3 to 4 years. But come on, guys, shouldn't you be wearing the watch you want to wear, regardless of its price value, decrease or increase of value? I would say it's actually, I mean, the Pelagos first generation I think is going to go up in value. Am I happy with that? Not necessarily, because I'm going to wear this watch until I die, unless I get robbed or whatever, or lose it or whatever. So why would I want it to go up in price? Because it will only become a liability wearing it when it gets too costly. So one day I might not be able to wear this watch in public anymore because it's too valuable. And on the other hand, hardly anything is bought for the resale value. I mean, you don't buy a car for resale value, you don't buy books for resale value, you don't buy a television for resale value, you don't buy clothes for resale value. So why would it be that important for watches? Since it's the one thing you might be wearing every day for the rest of your life, unless you're a dealer, resale value is bullshit. Because, like I said, if you make 3,000 or 4,000 euros in 5 to 10 years on a watch, congratulations if you want to sell it. If you bought it to sell it and wear it in the meantime. But if you think it's the best investment you can do, well, honestly, guys, I'm no rich fucker. But 3,000 euros in 10 years is not something I lie awake about at night. I'm not going to buy a watch to make 3,000 to 4,000 euros in 10 years' time, only because I can, and not wearing the watch I want to wear because it's actually not my first choice. But because everybody wants to have the resale value, I have to go on that same train, step on that train, wear a watch for 10 years that you like and you pay twice the amount for than you actually would have. But hey, you can sell it again in 10 years. But yeah, but it might not have been the watch you wanted in the first place. So always make a difference between dealers, floppers, flippers, and collectors and wearers. That's probably one of the reasons there's not going to be too much watch videos of my hand anymore, because, you know, you get 500 euro watches, the best watches for 1,000 euros, the Omega Speedmaster Profit. Everybody's done these videos. And to be honest, when somebody comes out with a video, the best watches under $1,000, I don't bother watching anymore. They probably do a great job, but, you know, I think all the watch channels in our community have done videos like that. And at the moment, I'm just doing the same as other people. And like I said, there will be new videos, but my channel is going to go a little bit different way. Doesn't mean there won't be any watches videos, but since I'm not bound to money, endorsements, Patreon, deals with whoever, whatever, I don't really care. I can do what I want. So, continuing with the Pelagos. This is being a bit of a long video for my regular viewers. I don't think they mind. For persons who the first time come to my channel to get, can't this guy shut up and just talk about the bloody watch? Yes, we'll continue now. So the second versus the first generation. Well, you know, the ETA 2824 is being bashed like, oh, it's such a cheap movement in such an expensive watch. True if you compare it to the watch itself and the movement itself. But I won't go into it that much, but like everybody who knows a little bit about horology and ETA knows that ETA doesn't make watches, or ETA doesn't make movements out of the backyard. You know, they make a movement, the 2824, 2428, now I'm confused, 2824 /2 is a movement that has been proven for about 30 to 40 years. It's been all over the world in all kinds of dive watches and other watches. So you know it is one of the best movements, for example, a dive watch. Not a luxury movement, but a workhorse. And that is what you want on a unabashed tool watch. There isn't any shiny piece on this watch. So why would you put a shiny movement in it, since it's not really the core of the watch? So the ETA, and as well, you know, ETA comes in 4 different versions, from the normal ETA to the top grade. Now, of course, Tudor got the top grade ETA, and they will put in some extra tweaking and stuff. So it's a really high valued movement in this Pelagos first generation. Also, the is there anything else I want to say about the movement before I go on? Yes, of course, it's serviceable. Now, I've heard that Swatch is rethinking their decision to limited parts for independent watchmakers. So that it's a good thing, because maybe now watch parts will come back to the watch repair shops instead of you having to bring your Tag Heuer to the Tag Heuer dealer, because they can't service it because they of the Omega dealer, because they're keeping the parts to themselves. If you got a first generation Pelagos with a 2824 in it, you don't give up what Swatch, Rolex, or whatever is going to do with the part, because you will be able to service your watch for the rest of your life. Even if ETA would say tomorrow we're going to stop producing the 2824, you'd still be able to service this in 35 years time, even alone, and not even that expensive, because there are a billion of these movements out there. And if you, for example, if you bought a let's say brand Squale, Steinhardt, one of those brands who have a 2824, or Christopher Ward, who has a 2824 movement as well, the grade is often less. But what is more important, that in about, let's say in about 8 to 9 years time, your watch get magnetized, maybe some water gets in it, whatever might happen, something might break, you might drop it, so you have to service it. Now, I don't mind paying 300 euros for a service when I bought the watch for 2,500. But when I paid 600 euros for a watch, and the service is going to cost me 300 euros because the ETA is not giving out the parts anymore, it's hard to service an automatic watch that wasn't very expensive in the first place. So a lot of these watches will swamp the market, and they'll all become donor watches for everybody with a more expensive ETA watch. So if you buy a luxury watch with an ETA in it, no, it's not in-house. Yes, it's very good quality, and yes, you'll be able to wear that watch of yours for a reasonable price for the next couple of decades. So I think that's something to think about. Now, the difference between the second and the first generation I found more interesting, what I'm coming back to now. If they would have made the same watch, the ETA might have been done for. Then you would actually have people buying it. For the reason I bought it is it's not about the value, it's about the usability. Not an expensive but a very good movement in there, and still have the original character of the Pelagos, because this is the first one, whichever way you look at it. Now, the second generation has a 70-hour power reserve, so that is a big plus. I mean, since I got several automatic watches, I might not wear a watch for a day or two and then put it back on, and 9 out of 10 times I have to set it. Now, that's the reason I keep this Zenith running at all time, because if I had to set this watch every day, it would be a pain because of the moon phase and everything. So in the new generation Pelagos, what is different? Well, of course, it's the power reserve, it's the movement. But as nice as I think the second generation is, it is like the guy who picks up his prize. Now, what do I mean? First generation Pelagos, I would say, is the guy on the tracks doing the running. The underdog that nobody heard of. Suddenly he's back in the qualified for the 100 meters, or whatever kind of a sport you want to do, right? And it wins. Beyond everybody expected, nobody heard of it, and suddenly this Pelagos wins of the same range of runners. And then the next year, to celebrate that win, you bring out a special edition, the Pelagos 2. And that is the one that has already accomplished things, because it says Pelagos on the dial. It's already, the name Pelagos is known. You can say it's a chronometer. It's got all the signs of a winner. It's like a soldier on the battlefield, or a major that has made his stripes and has all these little markers here of where he's always, wherever he's been. So I think that is an interesting comparison. It's like the Pelagos Generation 2 is the arrived Pelagos. You know, it's got the in-house movement, it's got, and the Pelagos 1 is the watch that made it happen. So you can't go wrong with that, and that's what Tudor and Rolex did very well, because they knew, like I said before, if they both had the same movement, it's not, if the one had the ETA and the other the in-house, and it would be exactly the same, this might drop, or might just be interesting for people who want to have an ETA watch. But now there are a few big differences in both generations, and I always find it very interesting to hear people saying, oh, I had the second generation watch on my wrist today, and I say, well, what do you think about it? Oh, it's just great, it's just lovely. I mean, those 3 extra lines don't mean any much more to me. And I said, well, have you had a look at the 3 o'clock hour marker? So 3 of what? It's missing. On the second generation Pelagos, you do not have a 3 o'clock hour marker. Now, why is that? That is because the movement, because now they're making sacrifices on the aesthetics of the watch because they want to put an in-house movement in. Now, think about that. You can't see the inside, but because everybody's so focused on that in-house movement, it has effect on the outside of the watch. The 3 o'clock hour marker, as far as I came with my research in it, had to be sacrificed because the new Tudor Pelagos movement, the date wasn't in that spot that I actually could put the 3 o'clock hour marker in. So they sacrificed a brilliantly loomed small 3 o'clock hour marker so they could put the date in, because the new movement didn't fit the ETA movements. Interesting. Also, you can look online, if you see the alignment of, you know, if you take a ruler, you might want to ask yourselves at the second Pelagos. Now, I'm not bashing it, I'm just making a bit of critics. The second Pelagos, if you take a ruler, you might wonder, why is the date more or less floating? What is the measurements? Is it because it's not really symmetrical? It is vertically, but horizontally it's not off, but it's different. And that's because of the movement. And that's when I say, all right, guys, you got a 28,000 beats per hour ticking movement. So there's no difference between the movements except of the power reserve. There is nothing you can see on the outside because it doesn't have a display case, and it's also for a dive watch, so a tool watch. And I personally wouldn't sacrifice the things like the 3 o'clock hour marker or the Rolex case back or a thicker watch for just movement. But that's my opinion, you know, that's just my thing. I mean, the 5-liner, it looks great. It's a great watch. I mean, that's what they did, is they decided to make the working class Pelagos number 1, and the luxury class Pelagos, the Pelagos number 2, and it's up to you what one you want. And being that smart of changing the dial and the case back on the second generation Pelagos, they created the same watch but in a different version, but not different enough that you could see it immediately. So, especially for collectors, that's going to be interesting in about, I don't know, 10-15 years time. And people say, yeah, but you know, the Pelagos is not, the first generation is not going to go up in value because, you know, it only has the ETA now. It's a watch isn't only the movement, and rare watches are not only about the movements. You know, the one of the most sought after Rolexes is the one with the outhouse zenith that they bloody downgraded. So you never know what's going to happen, and I do understand. Yeah, so I do understand when they say the Tudor, you want to have a Tudor with the in-house movement. Fuck, now I lost it. Yeah, the camera just said, I'm gonna quit, bye. I didn't know what to do. Where was I? Fuck. Well, anyway, you can buy a Tudor because you want to have it as a tool watch or you want to have it as a luxury watch. It doesn't really matter. The thing with the second generation, it's a little bit thicker. There's a different case back. It's a in-house movement, which means that if you want to service that watch, you have to take it to a Rolex or Tudor dealer, and that's gonna cost you money. Now, I might do it anyway with this Pelagos, but you know, in 20 years time or whatever, just think about it. You know, those 5-liner Pelagoses, I like them. They're beautiful. The blue is really nice. But it in a certain way, it's a little bit bragging of what it is, putting Pelagos on the dial. And oh yeah, like I said, the rarity of a watch. Well, you know, the Zenith the Zenith movement in the Rolex Daytonas is very popular. Now that is a El Primero movement, so it's quite a established movement, and in view it's higher regarded as the ETA 2824. Nevertheless, rarity is something that especially Rolex lovers love, because Omega has so many rarities, it's just ridiculous. But with Rolex, you know, you might pay $5,000 more when on the dial there's a little red line under Rolex or under Submariner, wherever the fuck it is. You know, it's too ridiculous to think about. And since Tudor is going up with Rolex the same way, I wouldn't be surprised that in 25 years time people are looking for the 2-line Pelagos. They don't fucking care about the movement inside. They're gonna look for the 2-liner. Do you have a 2-liner? Yeah, I got a 2-liner. Oh man, yeah, they're so hard to get. I got a 5-liner, but the great watch, but oh man, the 2-liner is my grail. Nobody's talking movements. Honestly, in a lot of vintage watches, not everyone is talking movements. Right, think about that. A lot of people not going to agree with me. So where do we go? Chronometer Rolex on purpose to keep both. Yeah, so when you got two different watches, like the Soldier and the Major, or the Commando and the Major, but they're on the same team, you get a market for both. And that's the reason why these watches are not going down in price. They were more or less staying the same price as they were. They didn't even have a dip. You know, I bought this, like I said, in March 2014, and I paid 2,500 euros. I see this watch going second-hand in state 2 condition on Chrono 24 for 2,500 euros. So I could sell this for the price I bought it for after wearing it for 2.5 years. Now, I'm not one for resale value, but I do like to see that our watches might become collectible. I'd rather have a very rare watch than a very expensive watch. Not that I mean that I want to have a rare Psycho, but, you know, I like to be a little bit different. That's one of the reasons I like that the Black Bay has become the big hit, and the Pelagos is like the one for the people who have too much money or just want to have something else. Because if the Pelagos would have been just as popular as the Black Bay is now, with the blue bezel and the red bezel, I think next year we're going to get the Black Bay green and Black Bay yellow, and we even might get a Pelagos black. Who knows? Or a Pelagos GMT. But then again, if everybody would have a Pelagos, I might have bought the Black Bay. It's just the way I am. I can't really go with the gang. Maybe that's one of the reasons I'm not the biggest Rolex fan, because, you know, fuck. Then you're one of them. Fuck me. So yeah, by changing the dials and changing just a few things on the dial, putting Pelagos on, you know, all the little changes, that makes that both are keep very interesting. And I think that's one of the most brilliant moves that Rolex, or Tudor in this case, made with creating the second generation Pelagos, is to be sure that there is a market for both, for the old one and for the new one. And I wouldn't be surprised if Tudor is going to go after Rolex in about 5 to 10 years, because I'm been getting to know a lot of people who have a Rolex or want to buy a new watch, and they're really thinking about, do I want to buy into the whole kudo thing, Do I want to buy into the whole resale thing? Or am I just a very big fan of Rolex and I want to have a Submariner and I don't care about what everybody else thinks or has or what it's worth? Now, those are the real Submariner buyers. So, yeah, it's not something I think about a lot. What happened to this watch? Well, after 1,000 days, it is still running quite fine. You know, I told you that it was from 8 to 0, now it's back to 8 seconds off. I don't really care. Maybe it's why it's the ETA 2824, hasn't been regulated. I don't really care. What I do care about is that this watch has, in my opinion, the best bezel in the watch world. Now, because titanium bezel, maybe that's the reason, but let me just... There's there's hardly any wiggle. Not at all, I would say. And it's just, yeah. Nothing came close yet to this bezel. But I've had and I mean the cheaper ones, right? The Christopher Ward, the Steinhardts, the Audemars, and even some bezels of more expensive watches that I really was surprised that the bezel was so, or even Psycho, yeah, that the bezel was so toyish, plasticky, feeling very cheap. Now the bezel itself might have been of nice metal, but just the clicks and the go around was like a feeling like I'm opening a lid of a jar. You know, it's just that. I mean, not talking about the Vostok bezels. Even though I like the what is it called, the scuba dude, the amphibia, but fuck me, that bezel is bad. Oh dear. So we're gonna get another bezel for that one. Can you see the Pelagos like this? I'll put it like down here. So let me go over the things I've done. So yeah, with the movement, do you want a diving tool watch? Do you want to have a movement that more or less you can regulate yourself, or do you want to have an in-house movement for a dive watch? Just what you like. So yeah, so and one of the things is sacrificing the 3 o'clock hour marker. Is just something I'm really surprised of. Now, as you know, the bezel came off on this. If you haven't seen it, I'll probably put the link, and otherwise just go through the playlist. It's called the Pelagos Before Seeing the Doctor. That's the name of the video. I went up the stairs with this watch after I had it, I think about 3 to 4 months. And I slipped, and I because I was bringing a box upstairs, and I slipped. And and I tried to grab myself when I was falling down, and my arm became stuck between the stairs and the wall, and my arm twisted, and the watch was in between, and it just popped the bezel off. So like I say in the video, I was standing on the stairs because I got my grip, and I heard clunk tiddy clunk tiddy clunk tiddy clunk. And that was one of my worst moments in horology, because I didn't know what it was going to cost me. I didn't have that much understanding about horology, and just losing the bezel from a $2,500 euro watch. It was in my house, so I found the bezel, brought it back. In the end, it cost me 50 euros to get everything repaired. So, fuck, that was good. A bad thing about the watch, I would say, are the end links. Now, I love separate end links, but I hate that you have to be a rocket science to get the bracelet off the watch. Now, not everybody will agree with me, but if you go over the forums, if you go over the questions, I mean, I said before, there is a guy on YouTube with a pin getting the bezel off the Pelagos within 5 seconds. I think he deserves a medal for it, because I think the end links, as much as I love the bracelet, the way you have to swap the end links on the Pelagos if you want to put it on another strap or another whatever, yeah, that's how do I say that nicely without bashing the watch? That's just fucked up. Thanks. So So, Tudor, if you change anything, don't make drilled through lugs, because I think that's ugly in a watch case. But please do something about this, because people can't really change their bracelets, and if they do, like me, in the end they ruin their end links. So with the next service, I'm gonna get my end links, replaced. Maybe you can see it here. It's hard to see. You know, it's not that it's a danger of the bracelet hanging out, but you know, you tried so many times with the watch tool to get those links off that you're gonna damage the links and the lugs and everything. And yeah, that's just not something I really enjoyed. So I really strained Tudor to do something about those end links to make him be able to take off easier. And that's just my opinion. Another thing I really think is interesting, apart from this is my message to the whole watch world, or watchmakers world. And maybe we already have this and I don't know, so put it down in the comments. Why don't we have spring bars that are only used once? And together with these spring bars, you get a separate tool to cut the spring bars when they're inside the watch bracelet. So what do I mean? Well, if you got a watch, for example here, you can see, if I wanna, it's better to do it with a Pelagos. Just figure it out in your head. If you have the lugs of the watch where the spring bar is in, so you got two lugs and a spring bar, when you want to take that out on the bracelet, you have to put a pin in, wiggle it around, pull it back, stick it, take the other side, pull it back until it pops out. Honestly, I think it's absolutely ridiculous. Why not just change the spring bars together with the rubbers to seal your case? Because what the fuck does a spring bar cost? 20 cents? So why on earth would you take a tool and wiggle it in your bracelet and lugs and try to get it out and take the other side and just damage the lugs and damage... While maybe you could just have a spring bar with a tool that says, and you just take the watch out, and when you put the bracelet back in, you just click in a new spring bar, and when you want to change your bracelet to a rubber strap like this one, you just cut the spring bars, put two new spring bars in, and you're done. You don't have to spend 2.5 hours trying to get the fucking bracelet off the watch. Watchmakers, do something with it. If you make a system that works like that and it works well, you'll be a fucking millionaire and you can buy all the watches you want, any Rolex for the rest of your fucking life. I needed to get that off my chest because, you know, I might need 2 new end links when I don't need them because they serve well, but I just think it's ugly to watch. So I want to have new end links, and they're going to cost me 75 to 100 euros each. You know, fucking dude. But that will be in the next service. Bezel came off, handling straps, different straps. Well, yeah, I had the watch on several different straps. I love the watch on this. I really enjoyed the watch on this NATO. But in the end, right, it's the bracelet that does it. I like it on the rubber strap, but I don't really like the way a rubber strap feels. That's one thing I don't like about the Mudmaster. It's the strap. I don't like rubber. I'm not a rubber guy. I don't like rubber strap-ons. So anyway, this watch is what I think is one of the better watches to get for the money. You won't lose any money, which I don't think is interesting. But the lume is just brilliant. You know, it's an all-nighter. 2824 titanium. The only thing that you have to think about is the bezel. The bezel sticks slightly over the case, so in that sense I wouldn't call it the ultimate tool watch, because, you know, with me the bezel already came off and I'm not using it to cut wood and whatever. I just fell down the stairs. On the other hand, I think if I would fallen down the stairs with a pre-ceramic Submariner on my wrist, I would have broken or bent the bezel beyond repair and had to get a new one. I don't want to know what that costs. It's not going to be cheap, that's for sure. And the weight of the watch, I hear a lot of people talking about the weight of the Pelagos. It is so light, and that's not why am I getting that watch. And I'm like, what? I mean, I understand that you want to feel a little bit of watch around your wrist, but I really do not understand why would you want to have a heavy item on your wrist. You know, that's just going to annoy you at one point. I have the Citizen Skyarc, which is the stainless steel version, and I thought it was too heavy. So it's on a it's on a strap now because it's just, I thought the watch was just too heavy. So it all depends on what you think is important for yourself, right? I don't mind. I just don't want to have a plastic watch. But if it's titanium, gold, steel, no, it doesn't really matter for me. And honestly, I wouldn't say that the Pelagos is a light watch. Some people say this, and well, if they say it, that's their opinion. I do agree that you forget wearing it because it's so comfortable. But a light watch, it's not. And the color, I must say, the grayish titanium color, it's just something I really came to appreciate since I got that watch. Really nice. As you see, it's not really a specs review. It's just a one talk about the Pelagos. It's 1,000 days with the Pelagos. I'm going to say exactly what I want. So we got the weight. And yeah, there's a lot of young people going after Tudor nowadays instead of a Rolex. And maybe even more Omega and Breitling. But, Tudor is coming up. And it's interesting to see a watch brand, still being able to push itself up to the front. Especially in the luxury market. So who knows what's going to happen? Maybe in about 25 years' time we'll have James Bond saying he gets his Rolex? No, Tudor. You never know what he's going to say. You never know. Might as well. He might be wearing a Pelagos in the next Bond movie. I don't think so. Scratches, yeah, it does scratch. So we have more. Yeah, it's the detailing. It's funny to see that the detailing on the watch keeps surprising me. Like I said, the one of the things I found after quite a long time of use is, for example, you can't see it. The inside of the clasp has a rook in a shield. The second hand avoids the the name Tudor, and all that is thought out, and I think it's a good thing that it really the proportions of the hands, where do they touch the hour markers, and that's often a good indication to know if your watch has any horology or design behind it. Is just look at the watch and just see what it does. Just see what the second hand does. Is the second hand just sticking away and just blocks everything along its way, or is it just going over the hour markers? Is it just under the name? Is it just and those things have been thought of, and we like them, but we don't always know why we like the watch, because we don't realize we're actually watching those details we like. But because they're so subtle, we don't notice them. We just feel that it's nice. So I think I've been going over a lot of the things already now. Yeah, so we can get rid of that. So maybe some last few words. How did the watch serve me? Well, brilliant. I've been wearing this watch everywhere and anywhere. I've took it diving. It has been in icy waters, and not really icy waters. It has been in the complete heat of the sun. For a few months, the first half year, every week, I showered with the watch. The only thing I did is rinse the watch off every time I went into a shower or the sea, or maybe in the muddy kind of a thing. I try to keep it out of the mud, because mud is just fucked. You know, it gets under the bezel, whatever, like sand and shit. So what has become of my collection, in a sense that this watch used to be my only luxury daily only watch, and it isn't anymore, of course. Nowadays I got the Zenith as a true dress watch, or more or less dress watch. I got the Pelagos as a daily watch, and I got the Casio Mudmaster as a true beater if I go paintballing or mud mastering or any of that shit. Now we'll continue. I see the battery is empty. One moment. There we go. So my final thoughts about the Pelagos. I bought this watch for all the wrong reasons. When I started out with the horology thing, when I had the Citizen Skylark and I had the Omega, there was one thing I saw this watch coming by several times, and I didn't really like the black dial. I didn't really like the Tudor hands. It's just I didn't really like it. So I went over all the other watches, and I went over the Tudor Heritage Chrono and the blue one. That was the one I wanted. But then I found out that the second hand is a still hand. Well, in the end I got over that, but that was a no-go for me at that time. If I have a second hand, I want to see it go, not only when the chronograph goes. So yeah, that was a bit of a pain, and decided to not get that one. And then at one point I came back to the website and I saw this again for maybe the 10th time, and suddenly it just hit me like, fuck, that's actually a bloody nice watch. And that's strange. It's like looking at a girl 10 times, and the 11 times you fall head over heels. So the first 10 times you go like, well, yeah, she's a nice girl, she's about a 7 or something like that. She's a decent girl with a good resale value. And then at one point you go watching and go like, oh man, I'm a fucking idiot if I don't get the watch. There isn't anything close to this at the moment. And it's true, because for the price and everything, the whole loom stuff and everything, there wasn't anything close to this at the time. You know, and still it has a few very unique features, because if you see the helium escape valve, it actually says gas escape valve on the helium escape valve itself. Now, I don't know many watches who do this, because I think it's pretty difficult, or at least an effort, to put a gas valve in the first place, but then engrave the escape valve itself. You know, those are the little details I really love about the Pelagos, and there's more. And if you go over the older videos as well, I talk a lot about it. So this watch has served me very well for 1,000 days. I never had any issues except for the bezel coming off. And I know this watch will never leave my collection. When I bought it because I thought it was the best bang per buck. And then you found out 2 years later, I found out that they're going to make the in-house movement, or a year later. Yeah, a year later, I got the message that they were doing an in-house movement. And my first reaction was, oh fuck, I bought the wrong watch. Because that's more or less, you know, if you buy a car and there's going to be a new version of your car, you're going to go like, oh fuck. But it doesn't work like that. And especially when the watch is actually different, then you will have two markets for the same model of watch. And I think, like I said before, that is one of the most brilliant things I think they could have done. Make the workhorse and make the luxury horse. Still a workhorse, but it's a little bit more towards luxury. You know, as soon as you put your name on something, you wanna how do you say? You wanna have some kudos back. You know, when you don't need your name to put on something, you go like, it's okay. I know what it is. I know what it does. It's okay. And maybe that's why I love the Pelagos one. It's under the radar. It's especially when I bought it, nobody even knew what a Tudor was. At least not around my friendship. So yeah, Tudor Pelagos, great watch. 1,000 days review. It never let me down.
One bad thing, the difficulty of replacing the end links. If you do it often, you're just gonna damage the lugs or the end links themselves. And further, I don't have any problem with the watch. The size, 42 millimeters, is great. The thickness is, was it 13.5? I don't really know anymore. Fine, it will go under your shirt. If you have a really tight shirt, like any dive watch or bezeled watch, if you take your shirt off, your shirt might get stuck to the bezel. So don't start pulling your shirt, because you might pull the whole bezel off or anything like that, or rip your shirt. So that's one thing you don't want to do. But you can wear this any day, any time of the week, in any occasion. Now, unlike many pontiffs, gurus, and whatever else out there, I don't agree that a sport watch in 2016, even if it's a sea dweller, is a dress watch. I know where it comes from, but it's just not true. Is it acceptable? Absolutely. You can wear a dive watch under a tuxedo nowadays in 2016, no problem. But it doesn't make it a dress watch. It's a dive watch used as a dress watch. Fine if it's shiny and everything, sure. I mean, nobody's gonna call you out. They might even say, "Oh, you got a nice watch to go with that tuxedo," because a lot of people don't know even what a dive watch is. But honestly, you can't fool the real connoisseurs or aficionados. And if you don't understand that, that's fine. You know, you can wear a Submariner on a tuxedo any day of the week. But it never will be a dress watch. It is a dive watch used as a dress watch, and in that sense it works. But inherently, by birth, by source, it isn't. It's just that simple. Right? Right. So, what else? Well, I think I've been talking for about close to an hour, so I think a lot of people already said, well, that guy with the Pelagos, I've heard enough, I'm leaving. Well, good for you. If you made it all the way through the end, I got a nice little extra secret. I have my upload speed from my internet increased from 1 to 6 MB a second or something. So supposedly my live shows are going to be a lot more sharp in footage. And that is really something we need, because I love to do the live shows, and the live shows I have done have been more or less kind of popular and positive reactions. Thing is that the quality of the picture is not all that great. Like I said before, the most important thing for me is sound. As long as the sound is good, the picture is secondary, because you can have such a nice, you see this all the time with people going on trips. You know, they go to the countryside and make this beautiful, gorgeous video of the countryside, and they're talking about what is happening, and the only thing you hear is and you really go like, well, it's a nice nature, but I have the volume so low that I really can't understand what you're saying. So, and there's a very easy thing to do about it. I think I showed it on a picture once before, but it's you just take a piece of foam, stick that on the microphone of your video camera. It will record your sound, but it won't record the wind. It's just a piece of foam on your microphone on your camera. This is the only thing you have to do. Hence the reason the video with Wilco van Rooij is in sound effects quite good, especially if you know where we were with the wind and everything the first time doing it. That was quite a good thing to do. Actually, I'm working on some extra interviews, but it's not always too easy to get famous or well-known survival or inspirational people to your channel. So I'm busy with it, and I bet there's gonna be some other interviews in the future, and it will of course be the Pelagos interviews. I'll be wearing the Pelagos, and this is going back on my. Am I being sing like this all day now? Fuck. I'm going to wear this today as a celebration, of course, of 1,000 days Pelagos. I understand why there is an article online saying a one-watch man of a guy who had Rolexes and a whole collection of watches and ended up with the Pelagos saying, this is the watch I'm going to stick to and I'm not going to buy any watch ever. I'm going to sell all the rest of my watches and just keep this one. If I was forced to sell all my watches, in the end I'd have two watches to consider. This one and the Omega 751. Now, as much as I love the Omega 751 with the Dutch date, the problem is that although people say the 500 and 600 series movements of Omega are indestructible and a piece of brilliant horology, well, they break too. So I had the 751 break on me. The crown, the quick set date on the crown wasn't, when it came out of the factory, they already found out after a year or so that that wasn't the most reliable thing to do with the movement, and that's very fragile. And yeah, it broke on my 69. So I can repair it, and that's going to be hugely costly because supposedly that quick set date is made of diamonds or something, I don't know, but it's going to be hugely expensive to repair. You can just use the Vostok trick, you know, when you do the day and the date, you just go back over 12, back to 9, over 12, back to 9, and you'll be fine as well. I just want to know if that's not damaging to that watch, and we'll see what happens. And that's one of the good things about this watch, I would say. You know, you buy a unabashed tool watch, dive watch of a upcoming brand. The first generation has an ETA 28. It's more or less the diving movement in its highest grade, tweaked, full hour markers with full loomed bezel, everything on it. It's a hard watch to beat if you just want to have a brilliant watch that gets the respect, that gets the kudos if they know what it is. Might become rare. It is rare, but might become collectible. I think it will. And has a brother with an in-house movement that is regarded the same. And I think that's very good, because if you go on Chrono 24, you can see that within the last priced Pelagos in the upper going segment of money, you will see that with the last 4 or 5 Pelagoses, you'll have a blue one, a black one, and a first generation. So you will see the first 4 or 5 watches, of course, are going to be first generation. But as soon, and they're all about 27, 2800 euros. But as soon as you go up from the blue and the new black, you really don't see that much difference anymore. And I think that's a very good thing, because that means that not only Rolex goes up in value, Tudor might as well. And even people say Tudor, they say Tudor is a poor man's Rolex. No, it's a wise man's Rolex. It's for someone who doesn't need, it's for someone who rather drives a BMW with a, let's say, Ferrari engine than a Mercedes with a Mercedes engine. That doesn't make sense. I'm babbling now. I should be stopping. So thanks for watching, everyone. I might do another review with the Pelagos when I have a 2500 days review in about 3 years or so. But this watch has served me for 1000 days brilliantly, no problems. And it's just a watch you can't go wrong with, to be honest. Okay, guys. Ciao, bye.